What's up, everybody, and welcome to PPR podcast number 71, presented by Renovation Realty. As always, I'm Chase Izidoro, and we're joined today by the City Game of the Week reporter, Mr. Brandon Stone.
Renovation Realty, you know, Lincoln and Carlsbad, they renovated the whole Open division on Friday and Thursday. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where we have to start off, and just dominating performances by both. Let's start off with the Thursday night game, though. Carlsbad versus Poway. On last week's podcast, I said, you know, if there's going to be a recipe towards beating this Carlsbad team, it's going to be through the trenches. Now, we hadn't seen teams like Mission Hills and El Camino beat them through the trenches, but they made it closer for them. Boy, was I wrong. And especially because I thought Poway was capable of doing that because of the guys they have up front and because of Connor Rath. But the way Carlsbad physically dominated that game in the trenches was just impressive. I mean, I was blown away with that. Like, Poway couldn't get anything going all night.
Carlsbad wanted to send a statement. And they did. You mentioned to me before, because you're a smart guy, all the Lincoln folks were in the stands. They looked up at them and said, bring it now. And that's what they did. I also want to say to anyone dogging on Poway, please shut up. I don't want to hear it. They were undefeated. They earned their spot in the Open. They won the Open. They fought hard. They didn't give up. They were playing until it was 0-0. Credit to Poway for going out there, giving it their best shot. But clearly Carlsbad has something real special in the water this year.
I think a lot of people, when they look at the score line, they say, well, Poway didn't deserve to be there, which I think is wrong. But I think it goes far deeper than just they got shut out. This was a Carlsbad team that prepared perfectly for them. You know, I spent the first half on Poway's sideline, then I spent the second half on Carlsbad's sideline. When I was on that Carlsbad sideline, the amount of times that I would just hear, it's going left, it's going right, and then it would. That is something that they broke down during the week in film, they then trained for. So they didn't just beat them, because, they're a better team, which they are. They beat them through their coaching, through their training and preparation, and then the players themselves, and then doing it on the field.
They found something.
That's what it is. So it's not just, they lost bad to Carlsbad, Poway doesn't deserve to be there. No, Carlsbad earned that win and made it so devastating for Poway. I still think Poway was deserving of that. Maybe... I thought, first off, Cassius Murphy was phenomenal on the defensive side. 8 tackles, 4 tackles for a loss. It felt like he was in the backfield on every single play. I think there's a little bit of maybe that's not what we see when they play Lincoln, because they were stacking the box. It was 8-man boxes every single time. And Poway really only threw it a couple times in the whole game. So it really made it easier for Carlsbad to do so. But at the same time, you still have to dominate in the trenches the way they did. And I think that's the real takeaway is how can this Carlsbad team line up against a Lincoln team coming into this next week?
Well, I guess before we get into that, I think we should quickly say another great team in Madison. It's got to be real tough when the only, times you fall on the sword.
Yeah, was to Lincoln.
And that's a tough buy. And the fact that they kept it competitive both times, they're both in it going into the second half both times. I kept wondering, hey, Madison's a second half team. Maybe in the second half of the second game is where you see that second half team kick in. But Lincoln was clearly ready for it. They're finishing games a lot better than they did at the beginning of the season. When I saw them against St. Bonnie's earlier in the year, they're having trouble there getting that game closed out in the third, fourth quarter. They have fixed that problem, and that's nice to see. I don't know, do you see anything from that game that stuck out to you?
Yeah, I think one of the bigger things that really stuck out to me is just how deep this Lincoln team goes. Because we always kind of hear the same names almost every single week. But then you get a guy like Makai Gray, who had a 2-touchdown game, Joshua Carroll, who had an absolutely ridiculous catch. I think it really just goes to show that this Lincoln team is stacked front to back. And, it is a tough one for Madison because they lost to only Lincoln, and that's it. But at the same time, if you're
lost to only Lincoln, and that's it.
You know what I mean? That's kind of the way, if you're going to go out, that's the way you would go out. It's to the team. It's like, hey, we weren't better. It's a tough pill to swallow, but that's the way of the playoffs. But I think at the end of the day, I do think that the two teams who have been the best all year are the two teams that are left standing. And they're the two teams that, congratulations to those kids. They get to be the ones that first step foot on the field at SnapDragon, which is going to be an achievement in itself.
A beautiful thing, and it really shows how far prep football has gone, how far our county has gone, to be able to showcase that in Mission Valley. That's going to be neat. Let's talk about the matchup, because nobody wants to talk about it anyway. Carlsbad and Lincoln. It should be a fun one. Things that stuck out to me. I'm thinking a lot about being at last year's Open Division final. I'm thinking a lot about that Cathedral Carlsbad game. Things that stand out to me from that last time. Sands' weapons have changed dramatically. Nothing against Moore and Davis. They were great receivers for Carlsbad the last time they were there. But if that was, you know, the military they brought, the arsenal they brought to the war, now they got like SEAL Team 6 with the wide receivers now.
Absolutely.
With Justin Johnson, with Rosenblum, with Nico, and then you stick in Zach at tight end, and you suddenly have, and then Justice Woods too. There's 5 individuals that I would want on my side anytime. The issue is those 5 individuals are going to be going up against 5 really good players in that back 7 for Lincoln, and Satan's got to watch out for the sniper role. It got him last year in Savanea, who got him for that interception there, I think in the second quarter last year. Now he's got to watch out because Josiah Cox showed in that Friday game against Madison when he got the pick early. That's the guy you got to watch out for that's going to come out of nowhere, catch you when you try to float one up and pull it right out of the sky. So you got to be careful with that. On the other side, so I'll just get all my thoughts out now.
No, it's all good.
Lincoln, everything that they do has to be quick and tough in this game. Everything. Those 4 guys on the line, get on them, jam them, screw up the lane, screw up the time. You got to be quick on that. But they get on offense. KJ, he's got to decide, RPO, where am I going? He's got to do that quick. He's going to throw the ball somewhere quick. They got to have that ball out in 3 seconds or less, wherever it's going to go. It's got to be quick, quick, quick. Because one thing that Carlsbad was really good at that we saw in that Poway game was they understand their lanes, they understand their rules. So if you're going to switch it this time and try to run somewhere else, try to run the end around, try to run the RPO, try to do the double handoff, it's going to be quick, 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 quick. Or they're going to fall behind quick.
I think talking about that quickness, I agree, especially with the way that Carlsbad does swarm to the ball on defense. They do a great job of that. For me, though, when I look back to last year's Open Division final, where it really killed them was the guys on the line. And, you know, that Cathedral defense was, you know, top tier. And so it forced Sayan to basically run for his life the entire game. And he still performed admirably, but I think it might be a little bit different. I think Carlsbad's O-line is far better this year than it was last year. Still, they're going against a formidable force in Lincoln's pass rush. You know, we talked about PV and Fuel, also the guys on the interior as well. I still think, though, Sayan, from what I saw in the Poway game, that was the best game I think I've seen him play. The throws he was making, especially the deep balls down the field. I mean, it was pinpoint accuracy. And it's so crazy that, like, he's phenomenal rolling out to his left. He almost seems more comfortable as if he's still in the pocket. And, like, the throws he makes while doing that, he's going to make it extremely difficult for that Lincoln secondary. I don't know if they've seen someone play like him to this point or gone against a quarterback like him to this point. Obviously, you know, the Alabama commit. But, you know, there's going to be that battle in between those guys because Josiah Cox, Chris White over the top are phenomenal. Corey Thompson-Miller is phenomenal. The outside guys are going to be such a great matchup in this game. It's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top while you still have to pay attention to Roderick Robinson on the other side of the ball. And then that kind of goes the same way for the Carlsbad defense. Who do you pay attention to? Do you go 8-man boxes again like you did against Connor Rath? Because KJ Chatham is a far better player at quarterback, and they're a team that likes to spread the ball out a lot more as well. It's very balanced on both sides, and I truly don't know where it's going to go. I can make an argument either way for each team who's going to come out on top of this.
I just like the podcast has gone 7 minutes. That was the first time someone said Rod's name.
Yeah. Right?
I just noticed that.
It's impressive. These teams are so deep like that, though. I mean, it's incredible especially the way Carlsbad runs. You know, you'd think that they would lean on, like, one guy offensively because you have a Zach Marshall. No, he spreads it out to anybody who's open, and the way those guys get open is impressive. I have no idea who it's going to be coming down to, but I can't think of a better matchup for the inauguration of playing at SnapDragon. It's going to be phenomenal.
It's going to be real fun. It's going to be real fun.
Yeah.
The battle's going to be won 30 yards down the field.
I think I might agree on that as well, because at the end of the day, Roderick Robinson's still going to eat, but it's really going to be those guys on the outside. I think it's where it's going to come down to.
And who knows? I want to get crucified for this later. Is there a chance that Mason Walsh runs for more yards on Friday than Rod? I didn't say have more impact. I didn't say score more touchdowns, but has literally more rushing yards in a game.
I could see it. He's capable of it. But I think I think this game is going to be extremely close. And I think there's going to be a point where Lincoln says, if we're dying on somebody's hill, it's Roderick Robinson's. And so they're just going to keep giving him the ball because they know they can get it done that way. And it'll open up a lot of other avenues for their attack. So I would say no to that. but it's not. It's not because Mason Walsh is incapable of putting up that type of performance, because he is, and we've seen that time and time again. But I think it's about time we move on to the D1 now.
Hurry up, reading up all this time talking about
the Open always takes up the most time.
Let's go.
So we start off with the North County Game of the Week: Cathedral versus Mater Dei. The Dons beat up Torrey Pines 30-10. Mater Dei beat up LCC 41-9. Which way do you see this one shaking out in the rematch? Because my first thought when going back to that first game that they played was just how much pressure they put on Dominic Nankill. And we all know Nankill is still perfectly fine with rolling out of the pocket. But that really was the difference in almost destroying Mater Dei's game plan. And if Mater Dei's O-line doesn't step up again to handle that pressure, I could see the similar situation where the Dons could just salt the game away with their run game.
I was in this chair calling that game, and you already leaned out with your first sentence. This game comes down to, what is Cathedral's attack plan to get Nankill uncomfortable? He can make the throw when he's uncomfortable. We saw it when they were playing in the Carlsbad game. He would make the throw and it would go straight to McClure and they catch for touchdown. But in the previous game against Cathedral, when he would make those uncomfortable throws, they'd end up in the hands of guys like Faremo.
Yeah.
So pressures on Jano, pressures on Victory, and all those other guys on the line, the edge rushers, pressures on them, get to Nankill, make him have to scramble, make him uncomfortable. But when he scrambles, make it so he doesn't run with the ball for 10 yards. Make it so he's got to throw it. So that means you got to cover him smart and have that entire line of scrimmage covered, because then you're going to have to force him to throw uncomfortable, and that's going to allow you a really nice secondary, Ty out there, Ratcliffe out there, to get the picks that are necessary for you to once again beat them.
On the flip
Can they do it? I don't know.
Yeah, on the flip side of the ball, though, I think one of the biggest missing pieces was Trey Edwards, because he did have an impact in the moments that he was playing in that game. And even when he was hurt, he was still out there playing fullback, giving you 2 yards of blocking. That's all he wanted to do. I think he is going to have a massive impact in this game. On the other side of the ball, Cathedral's offense has gotten a lot better. Jack Stevens seems a lot more comfortable at quarterback. They love using his legs. He had a great game against Torrey Pines. This matchup, it's almost completely different, because I feel like both these teams have finally come into their own. It almost seems like a better matchup than it was in week one, when these teams were at the top in San Diego with everybody's rankings.
Nankill in the offense, they know how to use their weapons better. I mean, DJ Overstreet was the receiver of the day when they played LCC, and that's the first time I think all year you could really say something like that. And then, so if you're taking that depth and you're ascending that depth, it means you're in a great place. I agree, Trey on offense, defense, and then I want to see how Chris Snyder also works there. He was effective when they lost Trey. He was really effective at running back. He was effective as a linebacker, too, so I want to see if he continues to be effective now.
And we go to the other semifinal, Mission Hills versus El Camino, the rematch. Mission Hills beat them 14-13. El Camino's coming off a huge win against Helix. Mission Hills, though, a huge win in their own right, a 42-0 victory over Saints. Obviously that St. Augustine team's filled with freshmen, but it was Keaton Smith who stepped up as quarterback. 13-15, 269 yards and 3 touchdowns. Jaden Williams at wide receiver, 8 for 132 and 2 touchdowns. Not something that, we've seen it from them, but, not something that they leaned on. We always hear it's Santiago Salas with this offense, right? But now they have that passing attack, and almost, if they come to the table again with that against El Camino, which is tough because El Camino does have a great defense, but if they come to the table with that again, this Mission Hills team can be almost unstoppable, in my opinion, on offense.
I think that Mission Hills team, when they played last time, it didn't have Henry Davis, and I believe they'll have Henry Davis now to be effective. Also of note for El Camino, if they want to get this win, it's got to start with cashing in on what their defense provides for them. When they played that 14-13 game, they had a late interception, but they didn't cash in on it. And Mission Hills, they ended up being able to cash in despite their mistakes. So that means Serta, Eatman, Reed, they've got to be able to cash in off of the turnovers that their excellent defense can create. There's going to be a late pick. There's going to be a late fumble. What are you going to do when that late pick or late fumble happens? That's going to be the decider.
And I think they just got to grind down the game like they have been doing and make Mission Hills play your game. Make it be close, make it be low scoring, make it be all about defense. And a similar situation, drive down at the end of the game where there's little to no time left and go score the game-winning touchdown with the ball in your hands. I think that's the way El Camino is going to have to try to win this one. Move on to D2 for the El Cajon Ford East County Game of the Week. We have Granite Hills taking on Mira Mesa. I've been high on this Mira Mesa
team.
That's
how we say their name on the show.
Oh, yeah. Mira Mesa.
All right.
Now that's properly done. I've been high on this Mira Mesa team. They have great offensive weapons, defensive weapons as well with Cato. I'm not so certain that anybody in D2 at this point is taking down this Granite Hills team. They are rolling. And at every point, and it's so many different players every single week we see from Granite Hills. Davion Green, 2 interceptions, 1 was a pick 6, had an offensive touchdown as well. Parlin Sanders had a great game again. Colin Riley. I mean, it's somebody new every week for Granite Hills, and it's like you just keep finding out how deep this team goes every single week that passes.
So I'm going to say this about Mira Mesa. They've got the talent to do it.
Absolutely.
They've got the coaching staff to do it, and they're not a team that's easily intimidated. You mentioned Cato, Vanta, still great over there. Makai will do his thing pressure-wise on the wide receivers when he's on the defense side of the ball. But let me just say this: Granite Hills beat Helix. Mira Mesa did not. Granite Hills, they were up double digits on Madison before losing. Mira Mesa, they lost by, I think, 23 was the final one in there. Mira Mesa, 2 games against Christian. Deficit was a combined 3 points. 1-1, lost 1. Granite beat them by 38.
Yeah.
And finally, La Jolla, which is really their biggest litmus test. Mira Mesa to get the win. It's a single-digit win. Granite Hills beat them by 31.
I think they are. I think you have to look at it as a big underdog because when you compare the results. But Mira Mesa, we know they have the talent. I think it would have to be honestly coming down to faults on Granite Hill's side. So it would have to be Mira Mesa capitalizing on turnovers, forcing them to punt. But the way I'm watching Granite Hills, and no disrespect to the Marauders, but
we love them.
The Eagles are phenomenal this year.
They're playing their best football at the right time. It's going to be a tough task, but if anybody can do it, it is that Mira Mesa team. I want to see what Tyson does. He's going to face some very interesting pressure from a very talented front 4 for Granite.
And the other side of D2, we got Central taking on Ramona, and that will be out in the desert.
We're going to go there.
Yeah.
I got to get the money shirts, but we're going to go there.
Central beat Brawley in their rematch. Charlie Sullivan, 27 carries, 259 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He's been phenomenal for them all year. I've been high on this kid since I saw him last year against Mission Bay. He is an incredible running back. It's going to be a hard-nosed football game. Just these 2 schools and the way they play as well. But Ramona, I have to apologize to them because I said, you know what, I think San Marcos is hitting the right spots at the right time. And they held that San Marcos team to 100 yards through the air. Jamil Kassab, Aslan Enriquez were incredible defensively in the secondary. And Aslan Enriquez had 2 interceptions on Crete. And it's that time where you step up in the playoffs and it's like, all right, we got this big test against us. We got to lock down defensively to go win the game.
Do you think Mr. Enriquez's parents were just big, novel readers? You think they're just sitting around at home and they were just reading Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe? And they were like, this is the name. This is the name we're going with.
Well, there's also the kids.
Oh, you wanted football now?
There's the kids. No, there's the kids from I believe classical as well, where we have Sega, Friday, and Life.
Yes. We're going to talk about them Pollards.
We're going to get to them.
That's
why we got to
hurry up because we're going to talk about them Pollards. We're going to talk about them.
I see that one shaking down though with Central coming out with the victory. I think they're a tough out. And it'll be tough for Ramona to travel out there to the desert, as we've seen other teams kind of falter.
Well, Ramona's already a tough place to travel to anyway. Now they got to travel. They got to do a big curve, upside down question mark.
Yeah, exactly.
To go get to Central. I don't think there's I wouldn't want those kids on whatever pass there is to go the other way around there. I don't want them driving the Catskills or whatever that is. I agree with you, Enriquez. I agree with you with JK. What do they call him? The Cuban Missile? Was that what he called himself?
Something like that.
Something like that. They're talented. The whole team's talented. Central's a team that's been to the finals in recent years, and I think they really want to go again. And I think they still feel very disrespected by the rest of this section. I think they're going to be looking for a little respect on Friday. See what happens.
I tend to agree. Now we move on to D3 for the Jersey Mike City Game of the Week. Del Norte going to Point Loma. You will be at this game. Mm-hmm. To me, I've been big on Point Loma the whole year. I think, almost looking at them as an unstoppable force to some degree in D2. But this Del Norte team is catching fire at the right time, and especially with Jack Schneider at quarterback, using his legs now to get touchdowns. Upset alert for the Pointers? There's a possibility for it.
There is an alert.
Yeah.
There's a big red honking alert. It's called Jack and Ty. That's the big alert. It's a big flash. But here's the thing. If that game's going to come down to that, Point Loma's defense, I didn't know if Max Phipps was lying to me when I looked at it because I knew there was a lot. I'm still not convinced they're lying to me. I'm going to need Joel or somebody to text me and let me know it's not lying to me. 24 interceptions. They picked the ball off 24 times. And at Point Loma, they got this big old gong, right? We use it at the game. They got a big old gong on the sideline. When they get that turnover and they score a touchdown, they pick up the men, they go, boom, and they hit the gong.
That's a lot of gong
There's
strikes.
going to be some gong. It's going to be a gong show if Ty and Jack are not on the same page. Jacobson, Allen, Burdine, Lucas. They can all pick off the ball. I've seen them all do it myself with my own double eyes. Here's what I want to know. Point Loma, the Pointer kids better show up for this game. I better see that student section ready to go. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, it'll be a massive game for them on their home turf.
If the kids show up and the Point Loma kids are ready to go and they're focused, that's a tough one for Del Norte. But I've seen Del Norte play in tough times and succeed too.
Absolutely. And then the other side of D3, we have another rematch, UC versus Bishops. It was a 49-46 contest with UC coming out on top last time. However, UC was up, I believe, 21-0 at the jump. But that's what we know about this Bishops offense. They can strike quickly and get right back on.
They had that weird play too, like
where he was getting thrown back into the end zone, flipped it up, and LaDainian took it into the end zone for a pick six or a fumble six, either one, something like that. But this Bishops team, I think they are capable of putting up points. It's going to be how did their defense handle this UC offense, because this UC offense has been phenomenal, and we've seen it week by week. And UC's defense now, where they were letting up a lot of points early in the season, they have been nails coming down the stretch run, especially Dre Gardner. We feel like he makes a big play every single week. It's going to be tough for me to see the Bishops come out on top in this one, because I think UC has that chip on their shoulder from losing last season CIF. So I believe UC, I think, for me, would come out on top.
Dre Day usually means UC's payday. That is true. And UC is on that team of destiny flight. They want to get back. They want to reclaim, even though it's a division higher. I mean, I saw what they did to Patrick Henry. That was definitely a revenge, put him in the dirt kind of game.
100%.
And I think they want to do some convincing against Bishops as well. I don't know how many players Bishops has right now. That could really mean something if another high-scoring game. UC will have more guys on the sideline than Bishops. It's more guys to play special teams. That could have an effect on the game. Will Fierro, great quarterback. I think he was Coastal League, either Offensive Player of the Year, but something like that. I want to see what LaDainian Lawrence does to stop Will Fierro. If whoever wins that battle between sacks, rushes, hurries, whoever wins that battle, that's the team that's going to end up winning the darn game. Straight up.
I think I tend to agree, because we know how Fierro can play for this team. 300-yard performance, 330 yards and 2 touchdowns this last game, and his connection with Jaden Moore has been growing even stronger as the year has gone on. It's about getting pressure on him. If you can do that, this Bishops offense kind of grinds to a halt to a degree, and I think UC is very capable of doing that. Mm-hmm. So now let's move on to D4. For the National City Malacar South Bay game of the week, we have Coronado taking on Palo Verde.
Coronado Island.
This Palo Verde.
No one knows what that music is. Yeah. That was from kids. It was a show. It was from like 35 years ago. So sorry.
Do you know the name of the show? Because I'm lost on this one too.
It's Gola Gola Island.
Really?
Only the coaches know this show anymore. Only the coaches know that show.
You're dating yourself here.
You know, somebody's got to.
But
boy, you wish you didn't have me on this podcast. Oh my goodness. Anyway, sorry. What?
Marcus,
cool. Okay, go ahead.
Marcus Macon for Palo Verde has been phenomenal all season. Had another great performance against La Jolla Country Day in their victory, and they had a fourth quarter comeback to win that game. However, this Coronado offense has gotten stronger and stronger. Mike Milburn told me, he was flat out impressed from what Graham Bauer did this past week. 5 touchdowns, an interception on defense, and a fumble recovery. How do you see this one kind of shaking out? Because for me, I think Coronado is finding their stride at the right time, but also Palo Verde has just been a tough out because of how well they can run the ball.
You ever been to the Salton Sea?
No.
I wouldn't know how. I assume it would be easy to get to. I see it's got the painted rocks and everything, caves. The point is, those kids have been sitting out there in the back of Blythe for so long. They come out here, D5, get themselves their little D5 success, and they've been begging for more respect. Macon, Bejarano, that offense is simple. They run the ball, and then they run the ball. Then they go like this, but they go, no, they're going to run the ball. It goes back around, they run the ball again. And then they only throw like one pass a game if you're lucky. But then the pass that they throw, it goes to Macon or Bejarano, and they take the pass, and they go for a touchdown.
Yeah.
They are a tough out. They might be the toughest out. If you look at all because, My man Chase makes the rundown. 1s, 2s, 5s, and then there's a 7.
I think this is the wrongest way to put them as a 7 seed. If there's anything wrong, it's them being a 7. They are phenomenal.
It's about math. It's about math because they're playing. Half the games they're playing are against either the El Centro teams or playing Arizona teams.
Yeah.
So the math never works out for them. They are better than a 7 and
Absolutely.
a D4. I read that like a 2.
Yeah.
So that's how good they are. But that being said, Graham Bauer, great guy, recognizes when he's not down, so he can run some more a touchdown. It'll be interesting to see how they play. But Palo Verde, man, you could be talking about Palo Verde having to drive here, then go home, and drive back in a week. They may want to get hotels. Somebody get them a good hotel rate. I don't know if it's Escondido or Southwestern. Somebody get them a good hotel rate. They might not want to go home. They can work. They can Zoom for class. Let them Zoom.
I think that's got to be the way to do it, especially if I think they've been doing that for a couple of weeks now because they have been in the 7 seed.
Oh, yeah, because they had to go to La Jolla.
Yeah.
That's a lot of driving.
That's
a lot of driving.
They need a gas sponsorship here,
Yeah,
too.
there you go.
But then we move to the other side of the bracket, Fallbrook versus Mission Bay. Fallbrook, a great win over Parker. We've seen it beat Chris Bosch, but now it was Alan Leon. Alan Leon?
Alan. His name's Alan.
Alan.
Alan!
3 touchdowns in the game. And then we have Mission Bay with their win over Montgomery, scoring all 17 of their points in the fourth quarter to win.
That was a baller win.
And it was great way to seal the game with David Meyer having the interception at the end and also a great touchdown. For me, I've been kind of nervous about this Mission Bay team at times because we've seen them put high-scoring offenses, but then when they come against a good defense that's been, very low-scoring at times, I think Fallbrook does have a good defense as well. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be tough. I think those Fallbrook kids are kind of on their own personal mission as well, and they know how to run the ball. And to me, I lean towards that come playoff time. I think I might be leaning towards Fallbrook in this one.
Palo Verde, just mentioned them. They're mad. They don't get the respect they deserve. Classical Academy, about to talk about them. They don't either get the respect they deserve. Fallbrook. They may be the most angry of all. Teams that don't think they get the respect they deserve. Well, this is their time to prove why they deserve more respect. And I mentioned to see if they can prove it. Ethan Silver, the quarterback for Mission Bay, he was the corner last year, took the time and said, yes, I will sacrifice myself to play quarterback for you, and he gives it his all. I interviewed him after the game. You can just see, guy's wiped out, but he gave it his gosh darn all, and their wide receivers looking better than they've looked. Their defense, when I was watching them against Westview, their defense looks more keyed than I've seen them all season. Fallbrook's got a chance to prove that they belong and prove, hey, we are the best in D4. But Mission Bay wants to say, hey, we vanquished our biggest foe. Now we're going to vanquish the biggest foe on paper.
And, coming back also from their loss to Palo Verde last year, they're also on their own personal mission to try and get that CIF title now at this level.